Okay. Perfect. Well, it's 1 after and we have quite a few participants, so I think we will get started. There's a chat here. Okay, cool. Hi there from India. Thank you for joining us. So we have participants from all over the world today, which is exciting. Because so many educators around the world are facing the challenges from COVID. So really we're going to be discussing, hi there from Florida. So definitely please do use the chat. We will have a Q&A at the end. So if you have questions as we go, just ask your questions there as people are chatting there. And then we'll look at the end, save the last 10 minutes or so to go through questions and hopefully respond to any of them. Okay, so I'll give a quick intro. This is all about how to conduct effective distance learning by scaling project-based learning using technology. Oops, excuse me, let me change one thing. Okay, that should be better. Miriam, can you go to the next slide?
Yeah.
All right, so just a quick introduction for myself, and then I'm going to pass it, and mainly Miriam and Heather, the subject matter experts, are going to be speaking more. I am the co-founder and CEO of Project Pals. I've become more of a subject matter expert about education, but my background is not as an educator. As a former head of marketing at several technology companies, and so really, I've partnered with Miriam, who is my mom. Project Pals is actually a family business, and we will talk a little bit about Project Pals today, although most of the content is going to be much more general about just the dynamic of what's happening right now and how we can address the needs of students. I am her co-founder in this business, and Project Pals is basically a platform to manage collaborative learning. So there will be a little section towards the end where we'll talk about that, but most of it will be more general. Miriam, if you'd like to introduce or hear out the agenda. So we're going to discuss the challenges that educators and students face in distance learning during COVID. Obviously, a lot of students are having different issues, whether it's access or parental involvement, or we'll go over different kind of issues and get into them, and then also dig into potential solutions that might be able to offset some of those challenges. We're going to share learnings from effective distance learning initiatives that we've been involved with, that we've also learned about, done research about. And then we're going to discuss the role of data in distance learning assessment and just how important data can be to measure student engagement and performance when they're not in the same classroom together. So Miriam, if you'd like to introduce yourself and take it from here.
Thank you for joining us in this webinar about effective distance learning. My name is Miriam Bogler. I am the founder and chief academic officer of Project Pals. Before doing this, I was a computer teacher for more than 2 decades. I created Project Pals because I wanted students to be part of an environment that will be similar to the one they will experience when joining the workforce. I also wanted them to practice those important 21st century skills. I have a practical engineering degree in computer science, a BA in psychology, and a master's degree in educational technology leadership. Heather, will you please introduce yourself?
I am Heather. I am not part of the family, but I discovered Project Pals about last October. I teach in the Clark County School District in Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm going into my 14th year. I've taught everything from elementary to high school. Currently, I'm teaching middle school social studies, and getting ready to go to distance learning in the fall.
Thank you, Heather. So COVID-19 changed our life. Within 5 months, the world is unrecognizable. Life as we know it is over, and a new reality is changing the world. It's not changing just during the pandemic, but also into the near future. So and education is affected as well by going through a major disruption that will take a while to figure out. As everything else, schools were abruptly thrown into this new reality and had immediately to provide distance learning to students, and many times without any previous experience. They encountered many difficulties, including students who lacked computers or internet connection, or parents who did not have the time or the know-how to help them. So after 4 months of distance learning experience, school faced difficult choices. If they don't teach remotely, all of their students miss out on months of curriculum. And if they do, a sizable group of already disadvantaged students will be left out and will fall even further behind. And finally, how can distance learning produce meaningful learning? One second. I did some research about the experiences of all stakeholders involved in distance learning and concluded that schools need to consider these categories to make distance learning a positive experience. In inequity, I will discuss the lack of computers and internet connection to all students. I will also discuss the types of digital tools that are best for distance learning, using data to measure student contribution, the best learning modalities for distance learning, and finally, how student-teacher interaction is changing. Inequity in distance learning brings to the fore the big problem of the homework gap, which relates to the barriers students face when working on a homework assignment without having a computer or without having a reliable internet source. About 14% of households with school-age children do not have internet access. And in the US, every 15-year-old from a privileged background has a computer, while a quarter of disadvantaged backgrounds do not. And finally, the problem of parents who either don't have the time or don't have the technology skills to help their kids. The solutions for the equity problem. Times are tough and many districts experience budget cuts, but many districts and schools have come up with many creative solutions to the equity problem. For example, to make sure that every kid has access to Wi-Fi, some districts have negotiated special deals with providers to supply discounted or sometimes subsidized hotspots. Others came up with a creative solution to equip buses with hotspots that are being sent to the local community. As far as making sure that every student has a computer, schools are organizing fundraising. They are very creative. They are organizing fundraising events with the school PTA for purchasing computers, or they are reaching out to local businesses and asking them to donate computers that they no longer need. And this is, of course, another way to help out the computer situation. Finally, in order to solve the problem of parents who either don't have the time or don't have the skill to help their kids, I actually came up with an idea of creating a high school geek squad that will use remote communication software to access students whose parents cannot help them. It's exactly the same thing like when my computer doesn't work. I reach out to my tech guy and he accesses my computer via remote software and many times is able to detect what is wrong and also fix the computer. That's the same way students in high school can do the same for these students. And if you think about it, this is the ultimate project-based learning because these students are part of a real-life authentic project. And they will also be proud to be part of the help system in these difficult days. I want to focus a little bit on the digital tools that will be probably the best fit for distance learning. And of course, I'm going to start with Zoom and Google Hangout, both of them telecommunication platform to create synchronous classes where teachers and students meet simultaneously. Ideal ways of using Zoom and Hangout is when students use it to brainstorm, problem solve, collaborate, not as platforms for delivering content. And the reason is just imagine that you have on the one side, you have a teacher who delivers content, and on the other side, you have a student sitting in a room by themselves. And believe me, after 2 or 3 minutes, that student will turn off and completely stop to listen. So on the other hand, when they are communicating with other peers and discussing and brainstorming, it creates a dynamic environment that, that they all enjoy. Teams, Microsoft Teams and Google Classroom, they are a combination of telecommunication, of a place to organize learning, to organize their files, as well as to collaborate. But one project assets are distributed amongst many files and created by many people. which is hard to see, which creates it makes it difficult to see the big picture. Project Pause is all project assets in Project Pause, all project assets are in one place. Every phase of the project is in one place, and all assets are there for every team member to see and to edit. It also has a project, it allows project management, and also teaches students to manage their time. And it has real-time student-teacher interaction and analytics. The assessment of students with data was growing even before the pandemic. But with distance learning, the role of data is essential. Data and technology play a role in learning personalization. The pandemic have already changed reality in several ways. For example, standardized tests have been canceled due to school closures, because how can school find out if the test was done actually by junior or somebody else helped them do the test? Many Ivy League universities from California and from Virginia decided to cancel the SAT, ACT tests, actually to waive it as a condition for acceptance, because first of all, the first reason was because of the pandemic, and the same reason that standardized tests were canceled, but also because it creates they discovered that there's an equity issue where some students can afford going to courses that train them to take the test, while others cannot. So I believe that this change will become permanent. The new normal already exists in some way. For example, mastery-based assessments already are offered by Khan Academy, probably predicting the future. I believe that schools will use PBL much more to assess performance, because teachers don't have to prepare students for tests, and will have the time to assign projects and assess students based on their performance. Applications with real-time data is increasingly important for assessment. As far as learning modalities are concerned, the same group of education stakeholders mentioned previously also concluded that distance learning aligns with future-focused deeper learning. And what that means is that learning is going to be student-centered, that the boundaries of time and space are going to be loosened, and that students will be engaged in the real-world interdisciplinary learning. As far as learning modalities, the new normal are as follows. Of course, distance learning, online learning. Then there is also the other model of blended learning, where students split up between classroom learning and online learning. Personalized learning, students learn at their own pace, and personalized learning was on the rise previously and will be more so with distance learning, because it is an ideal platform for it. And finally, learning how to learn. This is going to be very important in online learning, because students will spend more time learning on their own, and they will have to develop time management skills. And down the line, they will develop those intrinsic motivations, which will become essential in this new normal. Many teachers believe that if they stop being the sage on the stage, that their role will substantially diminish. There is nothing more further from the truth, because in this type of learning, teachers assume central roles as mentors who are constantly following student work and intervening when they need to, or guide them when the student seems to follow the wrong path. I would like to present this quote by Andrea Schleicher, head of education at the OECD, who believes that the best EdTech solution is one that capitalizes the relationship between students and teachers. The ideal is pairing good teachers with good content and good tech, and sky is the limit, and I completely agree with him. In this new normal for student-teacher interaction, let me list here best practices. So trying to use the same methods that were used in a classroom and applying it remotely will not work. It will only produce the poor results that this last distance learning experience have generated. Critical content needs to be delivered in a project-based manner with both real-time learning and go at your own pace assignments, because PBL is the only type of learning that engages students and allows them to collaborate towards solving an authentic problem from real life. The acquisition of deeper learning competency will be key, as you see here, and learning will become student-centered. Let me close this topic about student-teacher interaction with a few examples from around the world. Naima Charlier, Director of Teaching and Learning at North Anglia International School in Hong Kong, says that her online learning experience gave them plenty of challenges, and that it increased, although it was challenging, it increased teacher confidence around technology and e-platforms. She also says that down the line, they were really easily sharing at warp speed what works and what doesn't. But really the more inspiring example comes from Italy. This is in the international school in Monza, Italy. Ian Sakdev, the principal there, when he found out that, the city where he lives in will be locked down, he immediately sat down and decided to create a video for parents, students, and faculty, and describing exactly how online learning is going to happen. And within 24 hours, he set up the entire online learning system, and students started to learn. That was amazing. And teachers were teaching via video conferencing, Zoom, and the students did individual work and group work. And he overhauled the schedule from a 50-minute to longer blocks. And teachers no longer use email, but Microsoft Teams. As I mentioned before, distance learning aligns with future-focused deeper learning. Here are the competencies that students can practice as they distance learn. But in order not to bore you here, I would like to present this in the context of one teacher in that same school in Italy who described how she is teaching in online learning. So she said that all the work, all the content mastery, she assigned to students while they were working at home, while they were doing homework. And when they were coming to the classroom, meaning coming to the Zoom session, that's when they started doing the problem solving, the critical thinking, the collaboration, the effective communication. And down the line, this is when they developed those self-directed learning and academic mindset. And up to this point, I focused on the problem, solution, and characteristics of distance learning. A tool that provides many of these new normal features is Project Pulse, because it is an online learning, distance learning tool. It is a digital tool. It has student-teacher interaction, and it is student-centered. Students collaborate in real time, and the teachers can see student data in real time. Students learn to manage project and learn to manage time. And they think critically, they solve problems, they can be creative, and they communicate and collaborate. And in order to go into the detail about Project Pulse, I'm going to pass the torch to Yuri Bogler, who's going to discuss that. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Miriam. And I'll just go through this pretty quickly, and then we'll move on to Heather, who's going to tell us about some of her experiences with distance learning and Project Pulse as well. So basically, Project Pulse is an all-in-one platform to manage classroom projects and collaborative learning. You can, if you can go to the next slide, Miriam. So basically, you can manage projects from end to end within Project Pulse. You can design your own projects. You can, sorry, Miriam, if you can go back one. I got mixed up for a second. Yep, thank you. Our mission is to make high-quality project-based learning accessible for all students. So basically, we have created a platform that we believe will help more teachers do project-based learning, because we think one of the difficulties with scaling project-based learning is that there's not much technology to support it. It's often done, very much kind of on paper and pen. And we know that in enterprise, my experience working at like corporations, project management software is essential to allow what's happening today, where in corporate America, people like myself are working from home and able to communicate with people all over the world to get work done. And we think that the same sort of efficiency and effectiveness that came with technology in the corporate world absolutely it's essential that it makes its way into K-12 and higher education as well. So next slide, please. Teachers manage projects end-to-end within our platform. They can plan projects within the platforms. You can design your own, or you can use one from our catalog. We have over 100 plus projects in there, maybe 150 now actually. Students can collaborate in real time, similar to working in Google Drive. They don't have to refresh the page to see each other's actions. They can all see it with, seamlessly working remotely from wherever in the world. Teachers collect all sorts of data about students and what they're doing on the platform, and then they can monitor and respond to student work as it happens, referencing that data. And then you can share projects with other stakeholders within the school community and parents as well. So it really is an end-to-end platform to manage all aspects of the project process. So you can design, like I mentioned, you can design an original project or choose one from our catalog. We have over 150 plus projects in there now, spanning the gamut from third grade, mainly third grade and up, a lot of middle school, a lot of high school projects, things that are subject specific, like how to do a podcast, or how to plant a garden, or how to do an at-home science experiment where you create a solar panel out of a pizza box, and also a lot of templates that are more kind of broad and are there that you can actually clone these, like the career pathway template or the science experiment template. And as a teacher, you can customize them to make them your own and sort of pair it to your own subject matter. So there's going to be things in there that you can just copy off the shelf and use because they're already pre-made, and some that are meant for you to kind of modify for your own need. Students, like I mentioned, they collaborate in real time, so they're working in this digital workspace. You could think of this as like a digital whiteboarding area where students can add photos and videos and text. They can build mind maps, and they can all work collaboratively. So there could be a group of 4 students in this space at the same time, adding different contributions, and they would all be able to work kind of seamlessly together. And then as a teacher or an administrator, you're able to monitor student progress with transparency and accountability. So this is a preview of the analytics that you would have access to that shows a breakdown of each project and the students within the project. How many hours did they actively spend in the platform working on the project? How much content did they create or edit? How collaborative were they with their peers? And then a breakdown really by percentage. And you can share this data with the students. It's an optional choice. We recommend to do it. And I think Heather can speak to some of the effectiveness of sharing it, because it really helps inspire students to do their part. When they see that pie chart of student engagement, they don't want to be the smallest piece of the pie, and it helps motivate them to do more work. So that's really the benefit of having that data for you. It helps inform assessment for them. It helps motivate and keep them engaged. And now we'll pass it over to Heather, who's going to talk about some of her experiences.
All right, so like I said earlier in my introduction, I started using Project Pals back in October. Another teacher was like, hey, I found this, you should try this out. So we decided to try it out. So I'm currently teaching at Mac Middle School. It is a Title I school in Vegas. We have a population of about 1,200 students, 100% free and reduced lunch, and 32% population is ELL. So, I mean, it's a very, it's a high at-risk environment. We do have the benefit that we are a one-to-one school. So all students are given a Chromebook to start out. So outside of the numbers, Mac, our principal really promotes us as a family. She promotes that we are builders of humans and making sure they're ready for the real world, even though we're still in the middle school, but getting them ready. So she's a huge proponent of project-based learning. So Project Pals falls into that. Mine. Thank you. The project, so one of the first, this is actually, it's kind of crazy. This is the very first project I did with my kids. I pulled off a template because I figured I want to just use a template. Let's not make this harder than it needs to be. So because I teach history, we went with the historical template, and we were learning about movement, and we looked at the bubonic plague and how it moved across Europe and China and how people were sick and all of that. And we did that as a whole group. And then our project was, not knowing what was coming down the road in a couple months, the project was our kids went and looked at different pandemics across the world. And so they were able to pull their key elements, and we looked at the event itself, and then we were able to look at the consequences of what happened because of that pandemic. We did eventually, when we started doing more projects, we did go ahead and we added like a vocabulary page in, because I have ELL learners, so that vocabulary and using that academic language is so important. So I was able to tweak the template more to fit our students' needs. So as I alluded, we went ahead and they did inquiry based. I believe they had the choice of, I think, 5 or 6 different pandemics: the Spanish flu, cholera, polio, and they went in and they researched that pandemic and compared it and looked at how like the bubonic plague impacted so much in, you know, early history. What about these current pandemics? So it was very interesting watching the kids as we went out on distance learning in March. A lot of my students came back and were like, remember when we did that pandemic thing? Remember we looked at that? And I was like, well, now what do you think needs to happen for this to be stopped? So it really gives them that real world. And we do, in Vegas, we do theme-based learning in social studies. So we don't teach history chronologically, we do themes. So I feel like project-based learning in Project Pals really lends itself to that. So I'm able to teach one area, and then the kids can explore the other themes, and then they're able to easily share that out to each other. So instead of me spending weeks on, you know, chronological history, the kids are able to actually self-learn and then teach their peers what they learned on different areas. So from a teacher's point of view, I absolutely love the real-time data. Yuri showed that. My kids love seeing it. It's competitive. Yuri said you can turn that off for the kids. I don't turn that off for the kids because my kids want to be the best. And so when they look at that pie chart and they see, hey, I only did 20% of the work on this project and my friend did 50, what can I do? And I find my kids going in, we don't do homework. Obviously now things have changed because of distance learning, but I could see my kids going in at night and you could see the graph going up because they wanted to make sure that they had added more. So they become a little competitive with it, which I think is good because then they're actually, you know, doing the work and learning the material that they need to. As I showed was a pre-done template that we used. I found it the easiest way to start any of my projects was to go from a pre-done template, and there's a ton in there on any subject, so it was really nice to go in as a teacher. I didn't have to create everything from scratch because I think like Yuri said, most of my project-based learning, I've done project-based learning in every grade level I've taught in. You're creating it or the kids are creating posters or that, and this gives that online component, so it just makes it easier because it's all in one place and it's contained. Project House is super user-friendly. My kids are able to figure it out faster probably than I was, and they could show me, hey, look at, we can do this or we can show this, so it's user-friendly for the kids and you're able to adapt it. My kids, I'm looking forward, I'm not looking forward to distance learning because we're just being thrown into this, but with the distance learning, I'm looking forward to being able to do collaboration with it. Like it's in real time, so I can group my kids and we can do like a Zoom meeting and they can work through a project together and I can be there to guide them or not there and they're able to work on their project. So that collaboration component, it's super important for our kids to be able to collaborate. In the real world, we all have to do it. So I think Project Pals gives you that ability to collaborate. And it also shows accountability. So my kids are accountable for what they're doing. When I would grade my projects, I would pull my kids. If the graph seemed way off, like I had one kid do all the work and nobody else in the group, I was able to pull the whole group and have a conference and say, hey, explain to me what happened here. Sometimes we had technology issues in the building where I had one kid's computer working and everybody else's wasn't. So they used that one computer for the day. And so that threw that accountability off, but then they could explain that to me. So that's super nice to have that piece, and the kids knew I was looking at it, so they're like, oh wait, she's going to ask questions, so we need to be able to explain why did I only do 10%, because I was having internet issues, but we worked through it, say on a Zoom meeting, and it worked out. And I also found my kids were a lot more engaged. I had more participation. My kids actually worked. So when I gave them a piece of paper and we did like a Avid one pager, they may not work, but I had very few times where I had to give a kid a 0 on a Project Pals because they all were willing to do something, which is super nice in this area.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Heather. We appreciate it. I'd love to ask you, a few questions kind of on in terms of this upcoming fall and so much uncertainty, like how are you planning, right now, I guess, for what's coming ahead, and how you plan to engage your students for the fall?
So our district hasn't decided yet, but rumor on the street is we're starting the year on distance learning. And then I'm assuming we'll go into a hybrid model where the kids are on campus twice a week, or 2 days a week on a rotation. So like I was talking to my administrator, and once we do distance learning, like I'll just group my kids when we do Project Pals, because that's an easy group. And I'll do class, like I'll meet with them in a Zoom, but once we get into the hybrid model, I compare, because we're going to do hybrid and we're going to allow parents to keep their kids at home. When we go to hybrid, I'm going to really work on pairing my kids across cohorts. So my kids in class and my kids at home, I'm actually going to partner them, because I feel like it's beneficial. Like the kid in class has me, and then the kid at home has the kid in class. So we're able to easily collaborate. So we'll actually, have groups intermixing. So that's kind of my vision for the fall once we get to the hybrid model, is to really mix my kids up. Normally I wouldn't mix my kids across classes, but Project Piles lends itself to that. And in these new times, I think and feel that as a kid is at home, it'd be nice for them to have somebody in their group on campus with a teacher. So when there are those questions, they can pull up a Zoom meeting and their Project Pals and work on it through with me in the room. So I'm really looking at going to that flipped classroom where I lecture at home and then working in the room on the project with somebody there to really guide them. That way when, parents, all our parents work, we're low income, they all have to work. They unfortunately cannot be home with our students. And that gives them that access all the time, no matter what's going on in the day.
So really using the students and kind of helping connect them through technology to be their support system, if the support system isn't there as much at home.
Yeah.
For if they're help working, etc. That's great to hear. And yeah, I think you're right to know that it's all kind of in the air right now. So you got to plan for the unexpected to an extent. But it seems like you guys have a good game plan coming for the fall. We'd love to open it up to some questions to the group. If anybody has any, please use the Zoom chat function over there. You can just type in your questions and direct it to one of us, and we'd be glad to answer. Let's see, give a minute for some questions to come through. And in terms of, there we go. Oh, there's actually a Q&A function, not just the chat function. I see that. Cost, Lisa. Okay, Lisa asked cost, and then is Project Pals free? Great. Good questions. So Project Pals, we did offer a free trial period up through the end of July for several educators. So we've had a bunch of new schools and districts actually around the world come on board just this last season. We are open to doing some more free trials if someone is interested, specifically in reaching out and doing a little demo and kind of testing it out with some students. We want to make sure that you guys can kind of try before you buy and feel confident in it. Our pricing is $10 per student per year. This is for US based. It's $10 per student per year, annual student license fee. And then we also offer professional development, which is all done remotely now through Zoom, which is in addition to that student license fee. And that $10 per student per year, that's a school cost. So that's like if an entire school is taking on a license. If there's just an individual teacher or a small group of teachers, reach out and we can kind of determine what's the scope of the engagement and what's the best, the pricing that makes most sense. Any other questions here? Okay. All right, I'm just going to give another second for the Q&A to come through. Well, I guess while we wait, Heather, I got a question for you. I guess what are the things that you're finding most effective about distance learning, and what are some of the, what are the things that are actually working for you? Because typically when you read in the papers these days, most of the news around it is pretty negative. Love to hear kind of your experience so far, either this past spring or looking forward. What are some of the things that you think are working in the realm?
I think one important thing to remember for all educators is when we went out in March and everybody got closed down, that was a crisis. And everybody just went home and just was like, I don't want to say free for all, but there was no organization. I feel like in the fall, districts are going to be, a lot more ready. Teachers should be ready to teach online, in the fall. Like, not that there's not going to be hiccups, but you're not in crisis mode like, hey, I could die going to the grocery store. I mean, not that that isn't the case now, but I feel like we've adapted and we're starting to adapt to this new normal. And so I think educators are should no longer be in survival mode in the spring, in the fall. So I really feel like that's important. We were in the middle when we went out. We were actually in the middle of a Project Pals project when we went out, and our district went the mode of, we're not grading anything, we're not having our kids do anything. But they did work, but it was optional. I actually had my kids finish their Project Pals, and they were doing a budget, so it was an individual project that they were on. And I got some of my best work because they had to do a video explaining their budget, and because we do financial literacy. And so it was really cool to watch those videos and their backgrounds, and they really got into it. So, I mean, I feel like that just helps me for the fall, knowing like, hey, they're going to do this, there's going to be a learning curve because I don't have them in front of me showing them. But I can actually, create the videos and go through it with them. And I know it's going to work, and I know it's something they'll buy into. So, I mean, as much as I'm not excited about distance learning, I think it's just going to be different. I think people need to understand that it's going to be different.
No, that's great. Thank you, Heather. Several more questions just came in. So first I'll answer about pricing in India. Yes, let's take that offline. If anybody has specific questions, like you want to schedule a demo with us and see it more in depth, or questions about specific pricing or territories, we're glad to discuss. We are working now with schools in Thailand and Malaysia. Miriam is starting a series right now teaching students using Project Pals in China through distance learning. So, it's really starting to expand. We're based in Los Angeles. I don't think we mentioned that. So we do have some districts in our backyard, like Pomona Unified School District, that's using it for their CTE program in high school. Heather in Las Vegas. We just got some new clients in Michigan. So it's kind of thriving all over the place. And we'd love to, if you're really interested in the platform, we'd love to have a discussion. Our contact info is on the slide. And yes, we are very interested in working in India. Is it compatible with Google Classroom? Yes, it is. We love Google. We run our business in Google. We do so much in Google. And so we wanted not to compete with Google because that would be really foolish, but we really wanted to just integrate with their powerful tools into Project Pals. So Google Classroom compatible. You can import your student roster, really easily. We also have Gmail single sign-on. So if your school uses Gmail for their email accounts, you don't have to create a new password for Project Pals. You can just sign up using your school password, your school information. And then also we offer Google Drive integration. So you can actually add Google Documents, Google Sheets. A lot of our projects feature Google tools that are embedded into Project Pals in that workspace that I previewed earlier. So you can actually add a Google document into that workspace, open up the Google document, preview it, edit it within Project Pals, or open it within a new tab. So we're not, again, trying to become a word processing tool or a spreadsheet tool. Those are great tools that Google provides for so many schools, and we just want you to bring those into your project environment within Project Pals if that's what you're using. Lisa asked if we can say a bit more about the functionality. We could, if we have time here, I can definitely share my screen and kind of show a little bit more. But also, if you want to look at more stuff, we can definitely schedule a one-on-one demo as well. I'm just going to look at the questions real quick before I potentially share my screen. Is there a community gallery area in Project Pals where students can have a virtual authentic is there a community gallery area in Project Pals where students can have a virtual authentic audience and can capture feedback data? Yes, there is. So there is a community gallery area. You can actually publish, well, number one, within the class, students you can, depending on how you share your projects, there's different share settings. You could share projects among students so that they can see each other's projects. And then We also have a school catalog and a district catalog, just like we have a Project Pals catalog. So the Project Pals catalog is where we house all of our pre-made projects that are available that Heather referenced, like the template that she used. But you can also publish to your own school or district catalog projects from your classes and then share it publicly with all the users within the school or district. Includes both. So basically, really what that allows you to do is take like the master projects that you design and then actually share them with other teachers. So the project you design, maybe another teacher within your school might use even years down the road. We notice that within schools, sometimes when teachers leave schools, the projects leave with them. So we wanted to give a place to allow teachers to publish their own projects within their school and district environment. Not like a teachers pay teachers so much, more for their school or district, not public to the web. But then in terms of students kind of viewing each other's projects, yes, you can do sort of virtual gallery walks using share settings within Project Pals. Is there a guided tour online or another way to better understand what the tool can do? Lisa, I'll get back to you in a second because I might just spend 5 minutes walking through the tool to give you a little bit more insight here. Can you describe the interface for the project management aspect? I work with my students with agile project management. To use Trello with them, but really let's use an integrated workspace like Project Pals. Yes, we do have a Trello-like tool. It sounds like I'm gonna need to share my screen here. And then the last question is, thanks a lot for your knowledge sharing. I want to know how many students can participate in project-based learning. Yeah, I mean, you know, we are working with some pretty sizable districts, so I don't think that there's necessarily a limit to how many people can use it. A typical project usually is like four students, 5 students in a project. But I know that Heather, in her first week or two of using Project Pals, did a project with 400 students and a co-teacher, right? You guys, it was something very large. And so she took one master project and distributed it to several classes, including some classes she was co-teaching with another teacher. And then, 400 students broke, I believe it was 400 students broke up into groups of like 3 or 4, and then each created their own copy of that project and did their project. And it really, I think, helped her scale that project to a level that probably wouldn't have been possible using pen and paper, but I'll let Heather speak to that a little more.
Yeah, so what we would do is we would take a template and like the pandemic one, and then we had, I think, 450 eighth graders this year, and it was me and another teacher, and then we would split, we had classes. So Project Pals, once he shows you the screen, you're actually able to create classes, kind of like in Google Classroom where you have different classes in different sections. So we were able to basically copy that. Every student got the exact same project, and then they created in their group their project for their group. So it was the same project across the board. Content changed based on the group and based on their topic.
Awesome, thank you. So yeah, I will share my screen just because there was quite a bit of interest to see kind of what it looks like. Miriam, if you don't mind. Mm-hmm. If I'm allowed to share, which I am, thankfully. All right, can you see my screen?
Yeah?
Yeah,
okay. I can.
Great, so I'll start here. It's a web-based application. So you don't need to download an app from an app store like Google or iPhone. You can just use this on desktop or laptop or tablet. So iPad, Chromebook, I know those are very common for our users. Those work well with Project Pals. If you have Google powering your email, like I said, you could sign up using Google. And then over here we're in the application now, and we're in My Drafts. This is where you can create your own project from scratch and then all of your projects basically are listed here in My Drafts. These are all of your master projects as a teacher that you can design and you can reuse for years to come and assign to different classes. So like Heather was saying, you can create a bunch of classes here underneath My Classes, and basically the flow is you will either design your own project in My Drafts, or you will go to the Project Pals catalog and view all of our projects here, and you can clone them. So how to start your business, or a project about the respiratory system, or about the new normal after COVID, or the math of coronavirus, or templates like GLAD templates for English language learners. We've added a lot of those recently. Lots of templates on career pathways or innovation, how to innovate, or engineering design templates. So lots of projects here that are subject specific that are not, and then you can clone them and they get added to my drafts. And once they're in my drafts, you can modify them to make them your own. Once you have a project, you can assign it from your drafts to your classes, and then your students will see, and then classes look a lot like Google Classroom with teachers and students here. You can use class codes, or you can import from Google Classroom, and the project basically becomes an assignment, and the students can start the assignment. They make a copy of it, and then they can add their classmates to it, and then they basically collaborate on the project within Project Pals. Miriam, is there a project you'd like me to show real quick? Is there one particularly?
Yeah, we can show maybe, which one? Go to science on the bottom, the science class, and products in motion maybe. Under innovation folder.
Got it. So this is what a project looks like in Project Pals. This is a project that was assigned to students, and basically the project is broken up into two sections, the project dashboard and the project workspace. So the dashboard is where you can scaffold the main ingredients of the project, like the name of the project, which this one is called Products in Motion. This was based off of a clone from our catalog, so it was just a clone that was assigned to the students. You have a place in the dashboard to add a description for the project. This is a preview of some of the statistics that you'll have access to. There's a place to add standards here, all sorts of different standard types that we support. Common Core standards, next generation standards, the Texas standards. You can append those to your projects. Supporting materials, you can add websites that the students might need to know about during the project, or students can add their own resources as well. So this could be links to websites, YouTube videos, PDFs, Google Documents, any sort of file type like that you can add as a resource. And then we also have a task board. Someone mentioned Agile and Trello. So as you're scaffolding, as the students are working, or whether you're scaffolding the project as well, you can add tasks to the students, or the students can create their own tasks. And the idea is that the students actually get exposed to task management here. And when you're designing the project, you can create a list of tasks for the students. And when the students start the project, they will actually have to assign the task to themselves or each other. And then they can drag and drop the tasks from the to-do column to in progress and then done. And at the end of the project, you'll actually have a nice list of all of the different tasks that the students completed with a photo of them next to it. So there are elements of learning about project management as it occurs in many workplaces today that you can bring into the Project Pals experience.
Before you go, hold on.
Yep. Oh, sorry.
One of the things I did with the to-do list as a teacher, grading project-based learning is always complicated because who did what and how do you weigh that out? On our to-do list, you can see that people are assigned to task. So when we got to the done column, I was able to look at who was responsible for what. So like if a kid plagiarized on a project, I knew what kid worked on that portion of the project and on the workspace. So it made it super easy for grading from the teacher side, because as long as they use their to-do list, I knew who did what, and I could have those conversations. Or why didn't you do anything? You were assigned this, you did half of it. So if you're teaching, that's a super useful tool, because that's always the challenge with project-based learning is, the one kid that does it all. But this to-do list allows you to see who was assigned what and who actually completed what they were assigned.
Thank you.
Thanks, Heather. Yeah, and we're really just trying to, in addition to exposing students to the type of project management they might see when they enter a workplace, we're also trying to give a lot more transparency to the teachers, like Heather just kind of discussed. Then we're going to the workspace. So most of the work gets done within the workspace. The dashboard you add the main resources, the tasks, the description, but the workspace is where most of the work will actually happen. And the workspace is broken up into tabs, like tabs in a browser. And each tab can be called whatever you want it to be. So in this case, the first tab is called the Physics and Simple Machines. This is a project actually based on a project that the Texas Educational Agency put out that guides students in learning about the physics of simple machines, and then applying that to trying to build Amazon's Kiva transporter system. So the system that Amazon has in its warehouses to grab the robots that grab all the boxes. That's basically what the students are doing in this project. So We name the tabs in accordance with the flow of the project itself. And I think that's something to point out too here is that, I don't know if there's a link to it, but like one of the real benefits of Project Pals, it kind of goes sometimes understated, is that this is based off of a project here. Where is it? Products in Motion.
There underneath.
Yeah, this is it. And so we actually are working with a district in Texas that asked us to adapt this into our platform. This is what a lot of PBL lesson plans look like, right? They look like a lot of text. It's kind of a wall of text, and it's difficult for teachers or students to read this and bring it to life and know how this is going to translate and turn into an actual project. We've heard that from many teachers, and it's kind of challenging. And so one of the benefits of Project Pals is to take this and sort of make it more linear and visual. So we took those instructions that we just kind of scrolled through and put it visually here into a sequence of events. So the physics, then learning about simple machines, and then continuing on to learn, kind of do transport research, and you'll see the different steps of the project here. So each tab comes with its own set of instructions that you can scaffold on the right side for students to know what to do here. And then you can scaffold content within the workspace. We didn't show you the scaffolded version of this. I could probably pull it up real quick just to kind of bring it to life. So if you wanted to use this project, for example, we have a version of it that's just a lesson plan that you can see kind of outlines the content, but does not actually provide any of the information. It just outlines that on this tab, we want the students to describe the characteristics of force, motion, and energy, right? The physics of simple machines. So this is what you would assign to the students, and then each group would get this, and then they would actually go in as a group and then start to define the characteristics of force, motion, and energy. And each student could work on the same component or on different components. And this is called a component in Project Pals. And that's based on computational thinking, which is the way engineers approach problem solving. When they try to approach a problem, they don't do it all at one time. They break it down into components. And we find that this is really helpful for students to kind of break down the subject matter that's involved in their project that they're working on. So then the students go on and they add more simple machines like levers. You can add GIFs into here, videos, really all the research that the students are doing about these simple machines, how they work. And then they're going to apply their knowledge. I'll jump forward here. They're going to apply all the research that they're doing to start to ask guiding questions. This is our question tool. And then actually sort of define how Amazon's fulfillment process works. And they're using annotations here to show all the steps involved in the process. Alternatively, you can use some of our knowledge tools like our event tool, which kind of allows students to build a gallery of images and text that describes a process. In this case, the process of shipping a box from Amazon to your house. And then basically the students actually ended up building some Legos, Lego brick, and kind of constructing, and then eventually programming, showing the programming that they're going to do to actually build a Lego robot that emulates the work of a Kiva in Amazon. So this is one example. This is a more advanced project. We also have kind of simpler projects in here that are meant for younger students, but just wanted to give you guys an example of what Project Pals can do. I know that we're almost out of time here, so are there any other questions or anything else I can show while I'm in the application? Can you group students with adult project partners, mentors, whose accounts are outside the school district domain? Great question, Julie, and the answer is yes. We do have an expert role, so the roles in the system are students, teachers, administrators, and experts. And so experts are an outside person that could mentor a group of students in a project, and then they could almost act like a teacher in providing feedback on what the students are doing. And maybe that's a segue real quick to show just some of the feedback tools that we have. As the students are working on the project, you can see all of their work unfolding in real time. This is a project where students describe the problem of homelessness, the population that it affects, the causes of homelessness, the solutions from homelessness. You can do mind mapping directly in Project Pals, how to get involved. And then the teacher can go and they can actually comment on anything. So they can say, this is great, or this needs work. And then the students can respond to it. Students can also comment on each other's work, so that's a way for the group to do some peer review. And then as well, you get access to the analytics. So then this is all of the time they spent, each student's kind of individual participation level within the group, and then different visualizations of that data. And so there was a question from Lisa, do I correctly understand the teacher can see real data on what every student did, for example, by a specific task? Yes, so this shows you the aggregate data within the project, but then if you go within the project too, you can actually click on this text box and view show history, and it'll show you a timestamp of every edit that every student. So this text box was contributed by 2 different people, not just 1. So yeah, there's a lot of visibility at the aggregate level within the dashboard and all the statistics, plus going down into the content level, which you can see here about student participation within the group project. All right, we have 4 minutes left. I just want to be cognizant of people's time. So if there's any other questions, seeing if there's anything else. I see there's a new chat. May we request a free trial period? Yes, Adria, please reach out to us. I'm going to put our emails back up on the screen, or Miriam, maybe you can take over the share to share that final screen from our slide deck. It's Yuri at, I'll just even chat it here.
I'll share it. Share screen. 1 second.
So I'm just going to add it to the chat here. Yuri at projectpals.com. Miriam at projectpals.com. Feel free to reach out to us, and we would love to discuss with you guys possibilities to help support distance learning. You know, we know this is a really tough time and challenging time for everybody involved with COVID situation, unfortunately, and education is suffering, and students are you know, getting the short end of the stick. Unfortunately, we really want to be part of the solution. So if you are looking to use, you know, Project Pals and your part of your solution design for this fall, we'd love to be part of it. So please do reach out. All right, thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate your time. Stay safe. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you. Thank you, Heather. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, so sorry, one more question. Do we offer teachers asynchronous videos to learn how to teach with Project Pals, or is it fee-based custom PD? We offer both. So there are free videos online on YouTube. I think, Heather, you and I did an 1.5-hour Zoom webinar, and then you were off to the races with 400 students. So it's really a pretty easy learning curve. We offer webinar trainings, some that are included in the license fee, some that are additional, you know, paid. We also have a knowledge center with a bunch of articles and videos explaining how to use features. A lot of our PD is around pedagogy. Learning to click the buttons is the easy part. The other part is the pedagogy. But if you're familiar with PBL, then maybe, you know, then this tool could be just great for you to just run with it. So that's kind of an answer to that, Lisa. And that's about it. So once again, thank you, everybody. We appreciate it and all the great feedback, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you very much. Bye, everybody.